All right, welcome to B-Sides, everyone. This is the Gotchas of Splunk.
I'm Noah Woodcock. I've been working with Splunk for about 4 years. I kind of do my own thing, as you can see. I'm not even close to Gregg on Splunk Answers. But I've worked on a couple jobs. My most major one was with a credit reporting agency a couple years ago, not the one you saw in the news.
Right.
So we did our job. We kept them out of the news. And I'm on another project right now working with a defense company, and excited to be here with y'all today and help y'all learn the gotchas of Splunk.
And I'm Gregg Woodcock. Like Noah said, I'm number 3 on Answers. That's how most people know me. I'm an inaugural Splunk Trust member, and I've been doing Splunk for 10, 11 years now, I think. Started as a customer. We were Splunk's first telecom vertical with Metro PCS, and now we are doing our own Splunk boutique consultancy. So if you need help with Splunk, just come talk to us afterwards.
I'm sure y'all have all been to sessions already, so you've seen the forward-looking statement. We're not experts on Splunk, official experts on Splunk technology, so if we talk about anything forward-looking, disregard that. But this is the gotchas of Splunk, not the getchas of Splunk, so we shouldn't even talk about anything forward-looking.
All right, so this is kind of funny because Doug started with this quote in the keynote, but we're going to go back to it. It's a kind of the state of problems in the world. Donald Rumsfeld was, during the Gulf War, gave a briefing from the Department of Defense, and he said, and we are not going to read our slides. That makes for a terrible presentation. We're not going to read our slides, but I'm going to read this quote because it's a good one. Reports say that something hasn't happened are always interesting to me because, as we know, there are known knowns. There are things we know. We also know there are known unknowns. That is to say, there are some things we do not know, and we know that, but then there are the unknown unknowns, and those ones we don't know that we don't know. And if one looks through the history of our country and of other free countries, it is the latter category, the unknown unknowns, that tend to be the difficult ones. And it's the same way with technology as it is with history. And so we're going to walk you through a bunch of these unknown unknowns that you probably don't know, even if you've been doing Splunk a long time. And you can go back to your infrastructure and look for these things, find them, and clean them up. First one, there are 2 ways to negate key value pair in a search for Splunk. You can say key not equal value. That's one way. Or you can use the not operator, not key equals value. Most people think those are the same thing. How many of you people know that those are different? Let me see your hands. Okay, about a third of the people know that those are different. That means the rest of you have some brokenness in your searches. The difference between the two, I'm not going to read the slide. You can refer back to it later. The difference between the two is that not, it has an N, N-O-T, keeps nulls. Null has an N, so that's how you remember it. Not keeps nulls. So if you have an event in your data set and the value for foo has no value for the key foo, and you do not foo not equal some other value, you lose those null values. Those events disappear. So unless you do like a fill null beforehand. So if you're doing this the wrong way, it partly because you think that all your fields should have a value. If you think all your fields should have a value, go to the field picker and then sort by event coverage, and only the top 2 or 3 or 4 are going to have 100%. The rest of your fields are going to have less than 100% event coverage. That means if you're using the not equals operator instead of the not field equals value, those events disappeared from your search, never to be seen or known about, and you didn't even realize that you were throwing them away. So that's super, super important to realize. The 2 negation search options are different. They're only the same if you have 100% value coverage for the field you're checking.
All right, so on this gotcha, you'll see that you're trying to filter by a case-sensitive field. So if you look at the search, you'll see that it has my case-sensitive value, and you're trying to get a stats count by that. And you've worked with this data before, you know about how many results should be there, and you're receiving way too many results. What could be the cause of that? You'll find that field values are case insensitive while field names are. And as Greg mentioned in Fundamentals 1, it is a good class to take even if you feel like you're an expert. It will help cement some of these core Splunk concepts. So whenever you can, you'll see that there's 5 different searches right there. And really the first one is the one that you would like to do. With the case command, it will make your search filter on those case sensitive values. The other 4, while they do work, they're highly inefficient because you want to put as much as you can in your base search before the pipe. Those bottom 4, while they do work, they're pulling in the case sensitive and the case insensitive fields and then filtering them out after the fact. So in general, when you are working in Splunk, put as much as you can in your base search for efficiency's sake.
So this is a similar one. This one you probably know about, but there are some nuances to it. The asterisk character in the search command is treated as a wildcard. Always. Like with the case operator, you can undo the case insensitivity with the case operator. There's no wildcard operator to undo the wildcard function of an asterisk in the search command. So you may be thinking that you're searching for stuff, and since it's a wildcard, you're looking for a whole bunch of generic values and you don't find them. It could be because you're looking for something that has the asterisks in them, and you're never going to find it. So just the key to this one is that wildcards in the base search are always wildcards. Asterisks are always wildcards. So like Noah said, you'd like to push all of your search before the first pipe. That's what makes it efficient. But in this case, you just can't do it. You're going to have to bring back the events that might be matched and then filter them with something that is not treating the asterisk as a wildcard.
This goes right along with what Greg was just talking about. You'll see that you're trying to filter by the myfield 123 star. And that could be an area code, and you want to pull in all numbers from a certain area code. Maybe you're working in a call center, you're trying to do call routing, or figure out, triage where an outage is based off of the customer calls you're getting. And you know about how many you should be getting back, but you're getting back many results that don't make sense. You know you should get more calls than are there, and maybe you're not even getting any back. Just your results number is way too low for the search that you're running. And like Greg was saying, in eval and where, asterisks are not treated as wildcards. They're string literal. So because you're using that eval command, it's looking for 1, 2, 3 asterisk. It's not counting it as a wildcard. And how often are your events going to have anything 1, 2, 3 asterisk? That's not very common. So while you're thinking you're pulling in anything with 1, 2, 3 after, it's literally looking for the case literal 1, 2, 3 asterisk instead of wildcard. And we actually discovered this when we were building a search on area codes. And when we had the my field equals 1, 2, 3 star in the base search, we said, great, all right, this works. We have all the events we need. And then we wrapped it up into the more complicated search and scheduled it as an alert. And it was never working. We weren't getting our results, but when we, when
always test your final search.
Right.
That's
so even when we backtracked, we broke it out into a simple search, and we said, this works. This should be working. So learn from our pain, and keep that in mind. Oh, this is kind of the converse of that. It's going to be the same case even if you can't see eval. So with eval, where, case, and if, it's going to be string literal. So we don't want to beat the dead horse, but for eval, where, case, and if, that it's going to be an asterisk. It is not going to be a wildcard. So whenever you're using one of those commands and operators in your Splunk, keep that in mind. It's an asterisk, not a wildcard.
right, here's a good one. This one happens every time we go to a client. This comes up every time. I know when you guys see it, you're all going to start nodding your heads. Yep, we know about that one. And some of you guys are going to be going, what is he talking about? So if you're running a search, I run the search, I'm building it, I'm the main Splunk guy. It's perfect. It's showing everything just right. I cross-check it with a system of record. My numbers line up with its numbers. I schedule it as a saved search, and I start getting calls. We missed the alert. It didn't fire. And I go back and run the search. I say, no, it says right here, count greater than 10. I see 11. Why didn't it fire? And then I call my buddy. I say, hey, go run the search. What's wrong with it? He says, well, I see it should have fired. I got 15. I said, wait a minute. You got 15 for yesterday? I got 11 for yesterday. How are you getting 15 and I'm getting 11? The system didn't fire. So it's not seeing 10. Well, I'll tell you what's going on. Some of the search time picker values are now relative. Last minute, last 5 minutes, last 24 hours, last 7 days. They're relative to now. Everybody is going to have the same view of the data when your search is relative to now. But some of those time picker values, like yesterday, last week, last month, last quarter, those are relative to time zones. What's yesterday for me in Central Time is very different than what's yesterday for Tony in Eastern Time or wherever he is. And that's what's breaking here. And it's a lot more nuanced than that. Turns out, when you schedule a search, you can say run as the owner or run as the user. So you have the option. And most people don't even think about it. Well, it makes a difference. What's the time zone of the owner? What's the time zone of the user? And what if the search is known by nobody? Our standard best practice is when we promote from test to production, we strip the ownership. So now the search is owned by nobody. What's going to happen there? You need to find out. So if you go into setting, if you click on your name, or if you're an admin, you can go to settings, user, pick a user, edit his preferences. There's a time zone setting there. That setting is super, super important. It's not just for how you view your stuff, it's for how you schedule your stuff. It's going to make a difference. It's going to bite you hard, and you're going to miss alerts if you don't get it right.
Right here. Let's keep it here.
Oh.
Like Greg said, his best practice is to schedule stuff as nobody. And if you already did that, then this gotcha would not happen to you. So you have a bunch of saved searches and many reports that are being generated from saved searches. They've always worked. They're important. You haven't tweaked them in a year. And let's say somebody gets transferred to a different business unit in your company, and their Active Directory credentials are disabled for Splunk. They're not working with Splunk anymore, so they have those privileges revoked. And you don't know if he's upset or if it's a coincidence that everything stopped running that he was related to. They're not firing, they were for years. He gets transferred out of your unit, and none of those saved searches are triggering the alerts and the reports.
Or worse yet, they are, but some of the other knowledge objects that it owns aren't working.
Right, so
it's
in your
different
testing,
now.
you think it is working. What happens there is in Splunk, it runs those searches as its owner. So he creates a saved search and he sets it to notify you, but it's running the search as him. So Splunk, as far as the search head is concerned, there's a user there hitting run search. It goes to the Active Directory, uses his credentials to run the search. So when his Active Directory credentials were transferred or he gets fired from the company, Splunk tries to run the search, but it doesn't have privileges to. You'd kind of think that the default would be to run it as system, but you actually have to choose to run it that way. So Greg said our best practice is to have it owned as nobody. We have this search will actually show you what searches you have that are saved and running as an owner. So even if you're not planning on having any changes, it's a really good idea to have them change to run as nobody or as a system user that's always going to have those privileges in order to not have that issue where you think that you're monitoring on something and you're not getting alerts when really you're not monitoring it at all, and that's why you're not getting your alerts.
And so, in this particular case, this search, it will actually show you, if you look at the where clause in the search, it says where this search is scheduled and not disabled, and it doesn't have a next schedule time. So that's how you know if you get rid of that other nobody, because you want to look for two things. You want to look for nobodies, make sure those are right, but you also want to look for if it's owned by somebody, it's scheduled, not disabled, but it has no next runtime. That lets you know that search does not have privileges to run. Otherwise, it would have a next runtime. And so this search will actually show you the broken searches in your environment. You just strip off that nobody part.
And all these talks will be up on the B-Sides website. If you want to go grab the slides and copy that in, you don't have to worry about taking it down or anything.
Don't worry about the screen capture. All right, so you're starting to get reports. Your Splunk's popular. More and more users are using it. And you're getting a lot of calls from users saying, hey, I got this search off the internet, and it was working, and now it's not working, or I can't get it to work. I know I should be getting results, but I'm not. And you go look at it, and you type it in, and it works. And you say, oh, well, I typed it in, it works. Type it in, and he types it in, and it works. But you go look at the dashboard of the scheduled search, it's exactly the same thing. You can cut and paste it, it works, but it's not working in the dashboard. What's going on? Well, I honestly don't know where this is coming from. I don't know what causes it, but it's very, very common that invisible control characters find their way into your search SPL. Look, I got some nods out there. You can't see them. Splunk will not print a non-printable character. That won't. Sometimes they'll print like a little red dot or something in these other systems, and you'll see it. Splunk doesn't. They're just there, and you literally cannot see them unless you type over them. So, again, take this search, go home, run it in your environment. It actually goes and pulls out the SPL of all your saved searches, and it will show you if there are any unprintable characters in that space, and then you can go in and type that one over again, and then it'll start working. And every time you go to a client and run this, about half the time we find a couple of them that are like this, and depending on where that character is, it can completely break your search's function, but not generate an error. So this is a great search. Y'all should run it everywhere. All right, so you guys know it's our standard best practice. Please don't name your fields with spaces, but sometimes it's JSON or XML or whatever, and they come in and they got spaces. So if you have a search with a space, and you want to say field or field with a space in it, and you want to say field that has value, obviously you put your double quotes around it and it works. The problem here is I'm running this search and I'm not getting the right counts, and I don't understand why. I have to use the double quotes because it has a space in the field name, and I could use a rename, but why doesn't this work? Well, this again is another difference between search and where. So I'm going to go back to that horse we beat earlier. Search treats asterisks as wildcards. If, case, eval, and where treat them as literals. Well, here's another difference. The where operator prefers to treat the right-hand side operand as another field name. That's how you can say if this field is greater than this field, and it goes and looks at the values and compares them. But if it doesn't find a field named that, it will treat that as a string literal. So it'll fall back to string literal operation. So I used where here. So it's going to say where my other field is a field name, and then it's going to look for the asterisk. So that the way to fix it is to use the single quotes. So what happens is when you do the double quotes on the side before, the double quotes works fine in the search operator part, but when you bring it over and you do double quotes on the right-hand side of where, it says, oh, he used double quotes. He's telling me that's a string literal. And no, that's not what you were trying to tell where. You're trying to tell it, use the field name that was stupidly created that has the space in it, and you can't use double quotes for that. So you have to be very careful when you use double quotes, When you use single quotes, are you using search? Are you using where? Is it on the right side? Is it on the left side? You got to be very careful. So there are two ways to fix it. In Splunk SPL, if you enclose a number of characters inside dollar signs, no matter where that happens, Splunk will always treat that as a field name. So the safest thing to do to debug this is say, I know this is a field name. I'm going to put dollar signs around it. It will treat that as field name. But you don't really go with that in production because it's going to end up in a dashboard, and then the dollar sign or token dereferencers and dashboards, and so now you're going to get into this confusion. It just won't work right? But that's how you debug it. But the real fix is to use a single quote. That's dashboard friendly. But just be careful. Those double quotes on the right side, that means I am a string literal. On the left side, it means I'm a field name. But so use the single quotes if it needs to be on the right side. Oops, I did that wrong.
So for this gotcha, you're trying to concatenate two separate fields. So you're using the cat field, my field, plus other field. And if you're trying to pull together, let's say it says cat dog. So you're trying to make cat dog one separate thing. So you have cat plus dog, and it comes out cat dog in your new field. But if you're trying to, maybe you're back to a phone number example, maybe for some reason the area code is separate from the rest of the phone number, and you're trying to splice those back together to get a full phone number. So you have, 123 plus 780-20089. So you have, 972 plus the other 7 digits. You'll find that instead it did math. So your value is totally wrong. Even though you've done this before, you know it works. You use the plus sign and you don't have any issues. What you'll find is that it wants to use the plus sign as a math operator because that's the plus sign's primary thing. It's used in math, in addition. So if you're trying to use anything with a number where you're not trying to add it, you need to use the dot or the toString to enforce the concatenation that you want. So the best practice is plus sign for math only. Even if it works for text, you may as well use the best practice just because you know that the plus doesn't work with numbers, an inexperienced person coming behind you, dissecting your searches, they'll say, oh, okay, cool, I can use the plus sign for this, and they'll run into the same thing you do. So you want to be friendly to future you or whoever else is coming behind you. So when you're concatenating in Splunk, use the dot only. And if you'd like to typecast your data to force it to be what you would like it to be, you can either use the toString or the toNumber to typecast your data and ensure that you get your end result.
So we have a short period of time for Q&A because usually when we present these, some people have some questions. If you have a need for a clarification, raise your hand and let me know. Did that all make sense to everybody? All right, so I got a bonus one if there aren't any. I'm not seeing any hands or heads. So it's not in the slide. I thought we probably wouldn't because you guys are the geeks. You came to conference, you're going to get it. When we present this live, a lot of times people are going, I don't understand, show me. So I'm going to give you a free one. I'm going to give you a bonus one. Now, this one is painful. It's not on the slide deck, but this one really hurts. This one is going to cause massively wrong search result, and you'll have no clue. So it's sort. How many of you know the trick with sort? She does. He does. Wow, only a couple. Okay, so this is a good one. You guys knew more about the trickier one. This one hurts everybody. It turns out sort takes an argument. There's an optional argument, and that is a trim function. It's basically sort and head. So if I do pipe sort 10, I'm going to get the 10 at the top, and everything else is going to get thrown away. That's fine and dandy. But what you don't know is that there's a default value for that. And it's either 100 or 1,000, depending on which version of Splunk you're using. And so if you get used to doing a bunch of stuff and sorting it, and then piping it to a dashboard or counting it, and you say, I'm done. On your small time frame, it works, but you start spreading it out, and you hit 100 or 1,000, all of a sudden you're trimming your data set. So you would be well served by going back and looking for, using a regex on this, we've got a thing that pulls in searches, and look for sort not followed by a number. That's a bug. We do not allow that ever. We have searches. You can put an alert in and look for that. So the way to fix it is to do a sort 0. So my finger, when I type sort, even if I'm typing an email to my friend and there's something I type sort, my pinky automatically goes over to the 0 because, like, I've been doing this 10 years. Like, that hurt. I mean, when I first figured that out, I just couldn't believe it. That really hurts. And a bunch of you don't know that. That means you have a bunch of broken stuff in production. And usually when we talk about sort, people go, no, that's not right. And I go, yeah, it is. And they go, can we take a 15-minute break? Because I got to go fix that right now. So yeah, that one's bad. So this is part of an actual 2 to 3 day class we give. And we're probably going to record this live and put it up on Udemy. But if you'd like to do this and see a bunch of the other ones, if you went, oh, wow, mind blown, I didn't know that, I got to go fix it. There are a bunch more of these. We just only have 45 minutes to work here. Come see us later. You can schedule a session or get on a mailing list when it goes up on Udemy. And you can see the whole batch. And anybody recognize my artwork here? Anybody? Anybody? There you go! Atari 2600 Pitfall. She got it. All right. That's it. Thank y'all.